applauded by the two inspirations, who, with compassion like a father for his only child, teaches with 60-fold eloquence all beings imprisoned in cyclic existence, groping in the darkness of ignorance and overwhelmed by suffering. You, with thunder-like proclamation of perfection of wisdom, arouses us from the stupor of our afflictions and frees us from the iron chains of karma, who wields wisdom's sword, vanquishing the darkness of ignorance, proving down our every sprout of suffering. You are primordially pure, gone to the end of the 10 grounds, complete embodiment of every excellence, whose princely body embraces the 112 adornments. O Manjushri, to you I bow, dispel the darkness of my mind. O Marapatsana, with the brilliance of your wisdom, O compassionate one, illuminate the darkness of my mind's confusion. Grant me the light of self-assured intelligence, that I may see into the Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. I request that the wisdoms of hearing, reflecting, and meditating may increase. I request that the wisdoms of explaining, debating, and composing may be developed. I request that the supreme and common attainments may be granted. Please grant me blessings to quickly become like you. I request that the exalted wisdom of innate great bliss may arise. I request that the stains of mistaken conception of reality may be purified. I request that the net of doubts that are only in the mind may be cut off. Please grant me blessings to quickly become like you.
Okay. Just quickly, you've already done this, but tell me a little bit, so I know at least where you are. The definition of correct sign is?
Which has 3 modes.
Okay, do we say has 3 modes or do we say is 3 modes, right? We say is. Okay? Why do we say is and not has?
Because it is existent as it is.
And what happens if you say has?
That it holds.
So tell me something that has 3 modes but is not 3 modes. Do you know of an example?
Has 3 modes but not 3 modes.
Yeah, something that has 3 modes but is not 3 modes. Do you remember this one? There's a reason why we say it and then we'll start from there. But why do we say something that is 3 modes and not something that has 3 modes?
Because a correct syllogism has the 3 modes.
Okay, but is not the 3 modes?
Is not 3 modes.
Why?
Because it is not the property of the subject, known for pervasive knowledge.
Okay, so take product in the proof that sound is impermanent. It follows it is the 3 modes in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Except.
It follows it has the 3 modes in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Except.
Okay. Now go like this. Take a sign in the proof that sound is, what was it? We say do you remember what is that one? The one that has 3 modes but is not 3 modes?
I think it's a faulty.
Yeah, but what there was an example. I think it's take sound. It follows it is permanent. Is it?
Yeah.
Permanent, no? Yeah. Take sound. It follows It follows that there is no sign that has the 3 modes to prove that sound is permanent. This is why we say is. Yeah, that's the one. Can there be something that has the 3 modes to prove that sound is permanent?
Something has 3 modes.
Yeah.
That prove sound is permanent.
Are there signs to prove that sound is permanent?
Why?
Are there correct signs to prove that sound is permanent? Why? Are there signs that have the 3 modes that prove that sound is permanent?
I would say
You would say why, right? So now the thing is, take product. So take sound being permanent. It follows it has three modes because it has a property of the subject to prove it, and it has a forward pervasion to prove it. It follows it has the property of the subject because product is the property of the subject in the proof that sound is permanent.
Product is impermanent.
No, take product, it follows it is the property of the subject in the proof that sound is permanent.
Why?
No, because it is ascertained to prove that sound is permanent. You can have a sign that is the property of the subject. It doesn't have to be the forward pervasion, only the first one. Correct? So there is product in the proof that sound is permanent, and it can be property of the subject. Take sound being permanent, it follows it has a forward pervasion. It follows it has the three modes.
Why?
It follows it has the three modes because it has the property of the subject and the forward pervasion. That's the problem with saying has. Okay, so if it has the property of the subject and it has the forward pervasion, it doesn't follow it has the three modes. Take having the three modes. It follows it doesn't mean having the forward pervasion, having the counter pervasion, and having the property of the subject. It follows that is not the meaning of having the three modes. What is the meaning of having the three modes?
Having the three modes in that syllogism.
In one sign.
One sign.
That's why we say is the three modes. Got it? So you can say having the three modes means it has to have it on one sign. But if you just say has the three modes, it doesn't automatically make you think of having to be on one thing. Does that make sense? No, go ahead. So when you say, like, if you say I have something or I have two things, having can be different things. Whereas when you say is the three modes, then you're talking about one thing that has to be all of these three. That's why to make this ambiguity clear, we choose is the three modes instead of has the three modes. That's the only reason. You can of course take having the three modes and mean it like you're saying it, which is having means it has to be on one base or on one thing. Then it's the same. But because if you don't say that, it can lead to confusion, we prefer to say is the three modes. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
But first of all, a correct syllogism, a valid syllogism has the three modes.
Yes, but if it is a correct syllogism, it has the three modes in the proof that sound is permanent. The question is, if it has the three modes in the proof that sound is impermanent, does it have to be a correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent? Because the definition and definiendum have to be mutually inclusive, right? Right? So if it is the three modes in the proof that sound is impermanent, it follows it has to have the three modes in the proof that sound is impermanent. If it has the three modes in the proof that sound is impermanent, does it have to be the three modes in the proof that sound is impermanent? That's what we're checking.
But a correct syllogism is not a valid sign.
A syllogism is all three.
Right. So
Right.
a correct syllogism has the three modes.
A correct syllogism cannot have the three modes because the sign has the three modes.
A correct syllogism has the three modes because it has the sign
That
which
has the three modes. Okay. So then, what is the meaning of having the three modes? Is it established on a syllogism or is it established on a sign?
Both.
Okay. Take the three modes. It follows they're established on a syllogism.
Why?
It follows they're not established on a syllogism.
Yeah, accept.
It follows the syllogism is not the base for establishing the three modes.
Accept.
It follows the three modes follows the syllogism doesn't have the three modes.
Why?
Follows the syllogism has the three modes.
Accept.
It follows there's a valid cognizer that realizes the syllogism has the three modes.
Accept.
It follows that it realizes it on the basis of the syllogism.
Why?
Take a valid cognizer that realizes the syllogism has the three modes. It follows it realizes it on what basis?
On the basis of the sign of the syllogism.
Therefore, it follows it having the three modes is on the sign of the syllogism.
Why?
It follows it's not on the sign of the syllogism.
Why?
It follows it is on the sign of the syllogism.
Accept.
it follows it is not on the syllogism.
Why?
If it is on the sign of the syllogism, it has to be on the syllogism.
Except.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
So having the three modes is the definition of a correct sign or a correct syllogism.
Well, neither.
Okay.
But
If you were to go with
I'm
having.
I'm just saying that an additional, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, don't
An
worry.
additional reason, I think, why we cannot say that correct sign has the three modes is because it is not the only thing that has the three modes.
Okay, let's go like this. Take having the three modes. It follows it as a definition of correct sign.
Why?
Why? It follows it has it is the definition of a correct sign because it is the triply qualified substantial existent of correct sign. It follows it is not a triply qualified substantial existent of correct sign. It follows it is a triply qualified substantial existence of correct sign because they are established as definition and definiendum and they have the 8 doors of pervasion. Do they have the 8 doors of pervasion? Having the three modes and correct sign. Do they have the 8 doors of pervasion?
Didn't you say in the beginning that having three modes?
I mean, leave what now I'm choosing the opposite side. If it does it have the 8 doors of pervasion with correct sign? Let's go like that. Take having the three modes. It follows it has the 8 doors of pervasion with correct sign.
So whatever has the three modes
Is a correct sign.
is not necessarily a correct sign.
Okay, if it has the three modes, it doesn't follow it is a correct sign. If it has the three modes in the proof of that, it follows it is a correct sign in the proof of that. Why, right?
Depends on the interpretation of having, but yeah.
Okay, so let's go with,
Okay.
we choose right now, whatever you might be thinking of having, okay?
Accept.
Okay?
Accept.
If it has the three modes in the proof of that, it follows it is a correct sign in the proof of that.
Accept.
Accept? If it is a correct sign in the proof of that, it follows it has the three modes in the proof of that.
Accept.
It follows it has the 8 doors of pervasion. It follows it
No,
is.
why?
Okay. If it is a correct sign, it follows it has the three modes in the proof.
of that,
In the proof of that.
Accept.
In the proof of that. So take having the three modes in the proof of that. It follows it is the definition of a correct sign in the proof of that. Take having the three modes. It follows it is the definition of correct sign.
Why?
It follows it is not a definition of correct sign.
Accept.
If it has the three modes, it follows it is a correct sign.
Why?
For example.
A syllogism which has a valid.
Oh, I
correct sign
see.
which has-
Okay. A syllogism has the three modes. I see. Okay. A syllogism has the three modes but is not the three modes. Well, that's a little tricky. Take a syllogism, it follows it is not the three modes.
Accept.
Take a syllogism, it follows it is not a correct sign.
Accept.
Take a syllogism, it follows it is a correct sign.
Why?
Because it is a correct sign in the proof that sound is impermanent with the sign product is an existent. Take sound in the proof, or take sound, it follows it is impermanent because it is produced. It follows it is a syllogism because it is, or it follows it is an existent because it is a syllogism. Is this a correct sign?
Accept.
What's the sign in this syllogism?
The syllogism. No, the sign is
Syllogism. Therefore, take syllogism, it follows it is a correct sign.
Accept.
It follows it is not a correct sign
Why?
because it is your example of something that has the three modes but is not a correct sign. By itself, everything is a correct sign, right? Right? So that's a little tricky. Okay, but this is just a debate. It's not particularly important. What I want you to know is why the text says is the three modes. Is that clear? That's what the most important thing is over here. Okay? Yeah? Go ahead.
But if so, then I can say that the definition of correct sign is not that which is the three modes.
For example?
In the proof, for example, a correct sign proving sound to be permanent.
The subject exists.
Except.
It follows there's a correct sign to prove that sound is permanent.
Accept.
It follows sound is permanent.
Why?
Because it is an object of valid cognition. Follows it is an object of valid cognition because it is an object of inferential valid cognition. It follows it is the object of an inferential valid cognition because it is the thesis of a correct sign. So it follows there is no correct sign that proves sound is permanent. Right? So there is no correct sign in the proof that sound is permanent.
But if the definition were that sign, that the definition of sign were that which is the three modes, then it would fallaciously follow.
Okay, so it follows that there is something which is the three modes in the proof that sound is permanent.
Accept.
For example,
So in the proof
that sound is permanent.
that sound is permanent, product is
The three modes.
the product is the three modes.
Okay.
Yes.
Take product. It follows it is the three modes in the proof that sound is permanent. Naga, take product. What are you looking in your computer? There's nothing to look right now. Take product. It follows it is the three modes in the proof that sound is permanent.
Sound is permanent.
Is it the three modes?
Why?
He's saying it is, huh? So you have something to go with.
Yes. So yeah. Well.
Try this. Okay.
So I was going to start a debate on this. I mean, if I could use precisely the same reason which you used with has and apply it to is, product is the property of the subject because it is the property of the subject.
It is a property of the subject. It is. I agree. Is it the forward pervasion in the proof that sound is permanent?
Not in this proof.
There.
But you could say this about has.
Yes, but the difference over here is what I'm that when you word it with is versus has, your subject is different. When you say something that has the three modes in the proof that of that,
In the proof of sound is
and the proof of
permanent.
sound is permanent, for example, your basis is sound is permanent. And so you're seeing whether this thesis has three modes that can prove it. So what you're checking is not one thing, whether it is the property of the subject, whether it is the forward pervasion and the counter pervasion. What you're checking is a thesis, so your basis is the thesis, and you're checking if that thesis can have three modes.
Why?
Because the meaning of the word has can be interpreted like that. That's what the text says. Your interpretation is beautiful because you're thinking of it as not the thesis but as the sign or the syllogism. What Penchen Rinpoche says is if you take having the three modes, because having can be understood in both ways, it can lead to confusion. So then you can say the thesis sound is permanent has three modes. At which point then you'll have to say the thesis sound is permanent has a correct sign. And then you get stuck. That's the problem.
But why would you say that the thesis has three modes?
Because you can say it. The point is because you can debate it.
But you
And you
can't
can-
say that you can't say that it has the property of the subject in the proof that sound is permanent. You can and it has forward pervasion in the proof that sound is permanent.
One sec. Take sound being permanent. It follows there is something that has the property of the subject in the proof that sound is permanent.
Except.
It follows there is something that has the forward pervasion in the proof that sound is permanent. It follows that there is a property of the subject in the proof that sound is permanent.
Except.
It follows there is a forward pervasion in the proof that sound is permanent. Take sound is permanent. It follows it has an illustration of property of the subject and it has an illustration of forward pervasion. It follows it has an illustration of the first mode in the proof that sound is permanent and it has an illustration of forward pervasion in the proof that sound is permanent. It follows it has the three modes in the proof that sound is permanent. It follows it has a correct sign in the proof that sound is permanent. Got it?
But then why can't you say the same thing about is?
Try it. It's easy. Try it.
Okay, it follows that
Take sound as permanent.
text sound is permanent. follows it has something which is the three modes.
Why? See, your subject has shifted. Your subject has shifted immediately. It has something that is the three modes. Your mind has gone from the thesis onto the sign. Whereas with has, it doesn't have to do that. That's the point. Got it? Did you get it? Okay. Yeah? When you say having, your mind can do both. It can think of both. It can think of a thesis, it can think of a sign. When you say it has a sign or it has something that is the three modes, you're no longer thinking of the thesis. Okay? Just try this. It's a fun debate. It helps with the understanding. The point, which is what I want to get to, is when you say Tarig, so this is like an intro to Tarig, and then we'll move ahead. Why is it so long? Why are all the definitions so long? You were saying you also have a problem with the definitions being long, right? The reason why all the definitions are long is because what you're essentially saying when you talk about Tarig is you're saying when you use something to generate inference, that's the point, right? The whole point of a correct sign is to generate inference. The definition of inference is a determinative knower which is directly produced by a correct sign, which is its basis. Correct? So a correct sign, is that the definition of inference? A new and incontrovertible determinative knower that is directly produced by a correct sign, which is its basis. Lorik? Yes? Not okay, that's what it is. Yeah? So for having inference, you need a correct sign. Yes? For something to become a correct sign, what does it need? That's why the definitions come. Okay? So what it's saying is, if you want to prove a hidden phenomenon, which is the proof, like inference is to understand hidden phenomenon, right? If you don't understand something, you have to stop me right away, huh? You don't even have to raise your hand, Shmuel, here, just go, okay? Just ask right away. When you say that, you're saying, if I want to know a hidden phenomenon, because I can't have access to it directly, I need to go via a reason. Correct? That reason has to be able to make me sure that this thesis is valid. Correct? Now, I can give all sorts of reasons, but the reasons don't necessarily have to lead to inference. For example, take sound, it follows it is impermanent because it is an existent is a syllogism. Right? Take sound, it follows it is impermanent because, because it comes from a drum, for example, or because you can hear it. These are all different reasons that you can give to prove that sound is impermanent. But the only time they become correct signs is when they can lead to inference. So what are the minimum requirements for having a correct sign? That is this whole long definition. So what the text is saying, what Dharmakirti says is, for something to lead to inference, it has to be at least three things. It has to be the property of the subject, it has to be the forward pervasion, and it has to be the counter pervasion. And then to be the forward pervasion, what are the things it has to have? That's why the three modes is specifically important, because it's the minimum requirement to generate inference. Does that make sense? So it's extremely important in that sense.
Not only the minimum requirement, but also anything else is not needed.
Anything else is not needed, yeah. You can have more things, but they're not needed. So it's the minimum requirement in the sense, it's the most accurate requirement, we can say it like that.
Minimum and sufficient. Also.
Minimum and sufficient, perfect. So it's minimum, and the other ones you don't really need. You can add as much as you want, but you don't really need them. What you need is this, okay? So now, what do you need in these three? You need, so we'll discuss the property of the subject, the forward pervasion, and the counter pervasion is somehow implicit. So we'll touch upon it, but the real important one is these two, right? The property of the subject says, for something to be a sign that can prove something to you, you have to be able to be sure that the sign at least exists on the subject. Not only does the sign have to exist on the subject, you have to know that it exists on the subject. Whether it exists on the subject by itself or not is not relevant. You have to know that. Okay? That's why it says that which is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be existent only on the subject. Correct? So it has to be ascertained to be existent on the subject. That's one. Yeah? It has to be ascertained to be existent on the subject. Then it has to be ascertained to be existent only on the subject. Only existent, sorry. Only existent on the subject. Yeah? It has to be ascertained to be existent and only existent on the subject. And then in the mode of, according to the mode of statement. And then where there is a flawless subject. Right? So according to the text, these are the minimum requirements for property of the subject. So now we have to look at each one of these. Okay? Now the way we look at them is we look at, perfect, we have lots of time. We look at it on how the text explains it and we'll try and make sense of that. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. It's just saying the Tarig text says there is a reason for saying existent on, only existent on, in accordance with the mode of statement, and where there is a flawless subject. Valid cognizer. So it has to be ascertained by a valid cognizer as existent, only existent, in accordance with the mode of statement, and where there is a flawless subject. It needs at least these. So what is the purpose of saying it has to be ascertained by a valid cognizer to be existent? Why do we say existent? So I think you've done it in Tarig. What is eliminated by adding existent? That's how it was, right? What is eliminated by adding existent? Yeah. So when I say it is exist, so let's do it, sound is impermanent. Why do I say the property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent has to be something that is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be existent on sound, to be only existent on sound, to be only existent on sound in the mode of statement, in accordance with the mode of statement, where there is a flawless subject. So let's start with each one, yeah? Why do we say the property of subject in the proof that sound is impermanent has to be ascertained as existent on sound? Why do we say that?
Because that eliminates the possibility of the syllogism take sound. It follows it is impermanent because it is an object of eye consciousness.
Perfect.
To be a perfect.
Perfect. Take object of eye consciousness. It follows it exists on sound.
Why?
It doesn't exist on sound.
Except
Therefore, everything that doesn't exist on sound gets eliminated as property of the subject by saying it is ascertained by a valid cognizer to exist on sound, correct?
Actually, the English text we have does not say on. I made it accurate today when I said to this.
Oh, really? What is it? What is that? How does the definition go?
So it says the definition of the property of the subject in the proof of that is that ascertained by valid cognition to be just existent in accordance with the mode of statement in terms of the flawless subject sought to be known in the proof of that.
Okay, okay.
so Gemma, do you mind if we just ramble it?
No, please. Yeah. Anyways, 15 minutes are left. Okay, yeah? Okay. Just read it again. Now read it with, in the proof that sound is impermanent.
The definition of the property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent. I don't have the text.
It's okay, yeah, you're paraphrasing, but that's how you have to do it.
Is that ascertained by valid cognition to be just existent?
Where?
In accordance with the mode of statement in terms of the flow subject sought to the known in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Yes, but now you have to add it everywhere, no? That is ascertained to be existent where? On the syllogism, on the subject, on the thesis, on the sign.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Because this is the definition of property of the subject in the proof of that.
Right.
But when you say in the proof that sound is impermanent, where is this ascertained to be existent or on the flawless subject? If you keep reading it, right?
Right.
Where sound is the flawless subject. You'll have to do something like that, right?
Oh, so everywhere we add.
When you're sticking it, when you're combining it to a thesis, you're going to have to adapt this definition. So when you adapt it, you can say on sound, whatever you want to say, it's okay. So in Tibetan, in Panchen Rinpoche's definition, we say that which is ascertained by, there's another alternate definition, you might want to write it, it might just make your life easier. Okay? That which is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be existent on sound, to be only existent? What do you say? Only?
Existent only.
Existent only.
No, only existent.
Only existent. To be only existent on sound in accordance with the mode of statement. Yeah? I'm giving you the alternate definition. They mean the same thing. Yeah. That which is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be only existent on sound. Oh, you have it here?
The second one.
Thanks. Yeah. That ascertained by valid cognition to be only existent in accordance with the mode of statement. Yeah? Yeah? So here it says in terms of sound, or you can say on sound, it's the same thing, by the person for whom it has become the first mode. So there's a slight difference. Andres, this is the one that you'll do in IBD, huh? It's in Duja, thank you. Gen Lodo does Yongzin Duja, all the definitions are from Yongzin, but when Gens has written his Tarig book, it suddenly becomes Panchen. Okay, so the definition will be slightly different. Okay? Have you got the whole thing? Okay. So in both cases, in terms of sound or on sound mean the same thing. Now you have to try and make sense of this. So when it is the property of the subject, you have to know that it exists on the subject or in terms of the subject, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter, okay? Yeah? Now, that's the first part, right? Go with the second one. Only existent. Why do we say only existent? Why is it not enough to be ascertained as existent? Why does it also have to be ascertained as only existent?
Because not existing all
Right. So if that's the thing, then we're saying for it to be the property of the subject, it's not sufficient that it exists on the subject. It has to exist on all the subjects. Seems to be what it says, right? And then we'll do the debate on this first. This is very important. Okay? Got it? That's the second one. The third one is in accordance with the mode of statement, right? Yeah? Why do we say that?
it's stated on that syllogism.
But why do we say in accordance with the mode of statement? What are the different ways that a statement can be said?
Oh, is or has.
Is or has. So when the way that you ascertain it is existent on the subject, or what was it? How was the other way of wording it? Existent on sound? In terms of, yeah. Existent on sound or in terms of sound can be in two ways. Either that sound is that sign, or sound has that sign. For instance, in the correct effect signs, it's always in terms of having, right? Where it is take a smoky hill, it follows there is fire because there is smoke. So smoke existing on the smoky hill is in terms of having, not being, right? Because there is fire, but that is fire means that fire exists over there, not that the smoky hill is fire. Correct? That's why we say that. Now the last one. In your definition, you say where there is a flawless subject. Correct?
Yes.
In the other definition that I've given you, it says for someone for whom it has become the...
First one.
Okay. Now these two mean the same thing. These two mean the same thing. And with this we can finish the definition of property of the subject and then get into the doubt. But first tell me, what does flawless subject mean? Or let's do it in a different way because we're doing it we're not starting this. Let me ask you this question. Take product in the proof that sound is impermanent for dharma kirti. Is it the property of the subject in the proof that sound is impermanent? for Dharmakirti.
Accept.
It follows that for Dharmakirti, Dharmakirti ascertains product to be existent only on sound in accordance with the mode of statement, and for Dharmakirti there is a flawless subject.
Accept.
Take sound. It follows it is a flawless subject in the proof that sound is impermanent with the signed product for Dharmakirti.
Accept.
Why is it a flawless subject for Dharmakirti?
Because it is, for him it is, sound is impermanent in his belief.
No, what is the meaning of flawless subject? When you say sound is a flawless subject in the proof that sound is impermanent with the sound, what does flawless subject mean?
Means there is no mistaken concept.
That's in the dictionary. In the in Tarig, what does flawless subject mean?
Flawless subject. Try and give the definition.
Yeah.
The definition of flawless subject in the proof. In the definition of flawless subject, the proof of that is the common locus of one being held as the basis of debate. In the of that sign,
Mm-hmm.
and two, there existing person
There you go.
who, having ascertained the valid cognition that the subject is that sign, is engaged in wanting to know whether the sound is that predicate or not.
Right. So now for Dharmakirti, is sound a flawless subject in the proof that sound is impermanent?
No,
Why not?
because he has no interest in general. He's not engaged in wanting to know whether sound is impermanent or
There you go. Because he knows it. We assume he knows it. But if he's written the text, I'm sure he does. Okay? Got it? So, for something to be the property of the subject, you see it needs four things. One, you have to know that it exists on the subject, or it exists in terms of the subject. Same thing. It is only existent on the subject. The way that you know it is only existent on the subject is in terms of how you are stating it or how you're thinking about it, which is being or having. And you have to want to know the thesis. You have to want to know the other word is probandum. Yeah? You have to want to know this, because if you don't want to know it, or you don't have doubt with respect to it, that sign will not do anything for you. That's what it's saying. So if you want to think about something and understand the thesis, you have to have a doubt with regard to that thesis. When all of these things come together, then a sign is the property of the subject, and then it can gradually lead to inference. Otherwise, it cannot. Yeah? So this is what they have discovered. Is that okay? So all the parts of property of the subject are clear? Existent, only existent, mode of statement, flawless subject. For someone for whom it has become the first mode is the same thing. Someone
How
who,
does it mean the same thing linguistically?
linguistically, because the first mode is someone who is concerned with having known that it is the sign, wants to know whether it is the predicate or not. That's what first mode means.
The first mode means the property of the subject.
Yes, but property of the subject over here more specifically refers to someone who wants to know the thesis after having known the sign. Just that.
So here specifically.
Yeah.
And how can we sort of understand it from the text?
You can't. You just assume, after debate, this is what ends up with the answer. Yeah? Because if first mode means property of the subject, then in the definition you have the definiendum. And so if you have the definiendum in the definition, then it doesn't work. So you have to come up with something else. So what they've come up with is this. Yeah? It's one of those extrapolation games. Okay? Alright? Now the one that we need to figure out is only existent. So today we'll just focus on only existent. Right? So take a sign in the proof of sound being impermanent. For it to be the property of the subject, it has to exist on all the subjects.
Why?
Because it has to only exist on the subject.
Has to exist.
Only
on that
exist.
subject.
We say only exist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? It has to only exist on the subject.
Yes.
Therefore, the meaning of only exists is that it has to exist on all. Why do we add only?
Because it exists on that subject.
Not on all subjects?
Accept.
It follows it doesn't have to exist on all subjects?
Accept.
Then we just go with the text. Take closing its leaves at night. It follows it is the property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
Accept.
It follows it is not the property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
It is not the proof.
Property of the subject, not proof, huh? Not correct sign. Is it the property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient? Do we say sentient or sentient? What is it? You're the English. You're Swedish. You're the English speaker. What is it?
I say sentient.
Sentient? Okay.
Accept
What?
that they all.
No. That's not what I've asked. Take sleep, closing its leaves at night. Yeah? It follows it is a property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
Let's say I accept.
It follows it is not the property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
Why?
Very simple. Because it is the kind intention of the great master Yongzim Pulbuchok. Yes, no?
No pervasion.
What do you mean no pervasion? You're not allowed to say that yet. Reason not established. It follows it is the intention of Yongzim Purpujok because he says the purpose of saying only existent is to eliminate closing its leaves at night in the proof that trees are sentient because closing its leaves at night exists on tree but not on all trees.
That I accept.
You accept that? It follows it is not the property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
Trees are sentient.
Wait, are you saying you think
No.
we're not concerned whether trees are sentient actually? Buddhists say they're not. That's why it's okay to be vegetarian. Right? Got it?
Yes.
So, take closing its leaves at night. It follows it is a property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient
Maybe I say why.
because it fulfills the definition.
These are not established.
What is the definition in the proof that trees are sentient of the property of the subject?
Closing the.
No. The definition of property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
Oh, in the proof of that it is ascertained by one.
So say the whole thing.
That
That which is ascertained,
that is ascertained that the trees are closing the leaves of.
that which is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be a valid cognizer as existent in terms of trees, as only existent in terms of trees in accordance with the mode of statement where trees are a flawless subject. Is that what is the definition?
Accept.
It follows that closing its leaves at night fulfills this definition.
Accept.
It follows it is the property of the subject in the proof that trees are sentient.
Why?
Because it fulfills the definition. What part of the definition doesn't it fulfill? Our text already gives an answer. What part doesn't it fulfill?
Closing its leaves at night is not only existent on tree.
It is existent on tree, but not only existent on tree. Why is it not only existent on tree?
Because not all trees, there are trees that do not close their leaves at night.
Is that the reason?
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Agree.
You agree? Now the problem is this. Take pot. It follows it is isolate of pot. Yes?
Accept.
It follows that
Oh, wait.
is pot isolate of pot? Naga, don't say no. Is pot isolate of pot?
Accept.
Or let's go like this. Take pot. It follows it is not a definition because it is a definiendum. It follows this is a correct sign. It follows definiendum is a correct sign in the proof that pot is not a definition. We'll just do this one and then we'll stop. Yeah? It follows it is the property of the subject in the proof that pot is not a definition. Yeah? It follows it is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be existent on pot to be only existent on pot in accordance with the modus statement where the pot is the flawless subject. It follows it is ascertained by a valid cognizer to be only existent on pot. It follows it is not ascertained to be existent only on pot.
Only exists.
Only existent on pot, sorry.
Why?
Because everything that is a pot doesn't have to be a definition. Definiendum.
It is not established.
It follows everything is a pot has to be a definiendum.
Except.
Take a flat base bulbous thing that has the ability to hold water. It follows it as a definiendum.
Why?
Because it is pot. Take, yeah, okay. So try today, and then I'll come. Today we'll be here all day, right? I want you to try and at least do some debates with why are we saying only existent? Make sense of this. Have you done this debate before? I'm sure you did.
I just came to the conclusion that the definition of the textbook is wrong.
That happens too often.
That's true.
So let's try. Try again, but try and do it while defending the text. Okay? If you defend the text, then maybe you'll get an extra meaning. It'll be helpful. I'll tell you. So by the end of this retreat, we'll clarify a few things. Okay? Good.
We take the definition of the one you gave and defend, or
Both. They actually mean the same thing. So because they're the same, you can use the one that you've been using and try and make sense of only existent. Where only means on all, but then there's many syllogisms that don't work. One with pot in the proof that pot is isolate of pot doesn't work. Definiendum in the proof that pot is not definition, that one also doesn't work. So there'll be many problems.
I would
Yeah.
also say that take grass, it follows it is green. Because take grass, it follows it has a green hue because it is green. Also does not work.
Also doesn't work because there's many grass that's not green, right? Exactly. So this one is something that I would like you to try. Because this is one of the main debates in the property of the subject, and then tomorrow we can move ahead with forward pervasion. Okay? Great.
I just have one question.
Yes, you can have two also.
It follows a valid cognizer can have two modes of statement.
No, one cannot have two. Why?
So, for example, we did this. Take the subject fasting Shmuel. It follows he's hungry because he has not eaten. So it has two modes.
You mean one syllogism can have two modes? Yeah. One syllogism can have two modes. It can. So, but we'll do this when we do the property of with the forward pervasion. Because in the concordant class, in the definition of concordant class and discordant class, again there is mode of statement. And then with the sign, there is mode of statement. So the mode of statement doesn't have to be the same for the predicate and the sign also. You can have separate ones. We say the very common one that we joke about is take a horse, take a cow, it follows it is an animal because it has horns. So the mode of statement with the sign is having, the mode of statement with the predicate is being. So one syllogism can have two different mode of statements. Yeah? Okay? So we'll do that. Please do this debate today and then we'll try. Okay? Great. You all. Let's start. Please do the